Hello everybody, my name is Kimpa and I am a Pokemon Shill. Now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about Pokemon Sword and Shield's DLC Part 1. Before I start talking about the expansion in detail, let me make a few things clear, two things in particular. First, the criteria I have for this expansion is different from the criteria I have for what makes a good game to me. The expansion is obviously going to have less content than a game of around the same price tag. Second, my opinion of the base game is going to affect my opinion on the expansion, because an expansion is based on and builds upon an already existing game. Whether I like the base game or not will affect my experience with the expansion. Now that this is out of the way, let me restate my opinion on Pokemon Sword and Shield and if any of my thoughts of the game have changed. My opinions have not really changed except for two things. I'll just restate this really quickly. I think Game Freak has kind of quote-unquote perfected the Pokemon formula. Like, it could be better, but it's never going to be, like, bad. It's going to be okay at worst. If you want to know what I think about the game in more detail, watch my other video on Pokemon. The two things that I do view differently are raids and Dynomax. First of all, for the raids, allies do not scale, or at least do not feel like they scale with the higher level raids. 5-star raids are borderline impossible with how crappy a large chunk of the AIs are. This has made a lot of my 5-star raids going from challenging but fun to incredibly difficult, but because I feel like I get screwed over by RNG depending on what AI I get to assist me. And now I'm going to complain about Dynomax again. I voiced my displeasure with Dynomax in the past, but aspects of it have grown on me. When I mean aspects, I mean Gigantamax. I actually really like Gigantamax, and I think they look pretty cool. But what I don't like is base Dynomax. The Gigantamax Pokemon is designed with the idea that they're going to be massive, but Dynomax is just a really big Pokemon and it looks kind of dumb. It looks really awkward looking at a Dynomax Pokemon in comparison to a Gigantamax Pokemon. I think I would have liked this mechanic a lot more if it was either only Gigantamax Pokemon could Dynamax, or if a Pokemon that didn't Gigantamax would just gain like an aura like in the totem battles in Sun and Moon, instead of becoming this really big thing. Talk about the isle itself. It looks pretty nice and is of decent size. Visually, it fits in well with the rest of the game, which for other expansions may be a compliment, but for this game, it is definitely not. I would dog on the aesthetics more, but I already have, so let's move on to talk about the isle itself more. The isle is one large wild area and there's quite a few environments we have. We have beaches, caves, and swamps, and it's all pretty cool. I very much prefer this wild area over the base games. One problem I do have with it though is in the beginning you're only allowed to fly to the dojo. That's the only quick point you have. As time goes on, you're able to fly to other sections of the wild area, but considering that you could explore the entire isle in the beginning, I would like to have these fast travel points available to when you initially walk into it, rather than as the story progresses. Another nice touch that the island has is that your Pokemon will walk behind you while you're on the island. I like this a lot, but I feel like this feature should have been in the base game, or should be something that could happen when you're on Galar as well. Pokemon will not follow you when you are in the base wild area, and I find this strange, as with the introduction of the camping feature, every Pokemon that is available has some kind of walking animation, so I don't know why you can't just have your Pokemon follow you. Again, even in the base wild area, at least be able to allow you to do it there. But anyway, speaking about Pokemon on the island, let's talk about Pokemon on the island. Or, well, you know, the Pokemon you'll find there. Once you get on the island, you'll get a new Isle of Armor Pokedex, and can catch a total of 107 returning Pokemon. I like that they bring back some of the older Pokemon, but the number they bring back is kind of small, I feel. Like, 107 looks like a lot, but that's 107 different species of Pokemon, which means they don't separate them based off of evolutionary lines. There are like 50 evolutionary lines, and quite a few of them are Pokemon that don't even evolve. It's kind of disappointing. I would have liked to see more returning Pokemon, and at least have the dex be 150 returning Pokemon. I think that would have been a lot cooler. Because as it is, the dex felt very easy for me to either complete or get, most of it done, considering that there are certain version exclusive Pokemon that I haven't been able to catch yet. In addition to these Pokemon, they added a new legendary Kubfu and its evolution, Urshifu. They added Galarian Slowpoke and Slowbro, and 6 new Gigantamax forms for Venusaur, Blastoise, the Galar starters, Rillaboom, Cinderace and Inteleon, and Urshifu. I like these new additions a lot. I really like the whole idea of different forms of Pokemon depending on what region you catch them in, and again, I really like the G-Max forms, my favorite of these being Blastoise. He actually uses his cannons now, but I wish there were more of these, just like 1 or 2. The rival of this expansion uses Slowbro as their signature Pokemon, but why doesn't that have a G-Max form? It's kinda weird. Also, because they bring in all these older Pokemon to Galar, wouldn't it be cool if there were more Galar variants included? Like maybe a Galarian Luxray and give it a dark typing, just something I always thought it actually had. Again, there doesn't have to be a whole lot of these, but I would have appreciated if they put in just a little bit more. The story is nothing to hit home about. Again, it's a Pokemon game. I don't really know what you expect. It's maybe like 3 or 4 hours long at max, which is fine. I think the main appeal of this DLC isn't its new story, but rather a new place to explore and more Pokemon to catch. I like the new character designs a lot. I think they're pretty cool, and the rival is very expressive. Probably the most expressive a character from Pokemon has ever been. But they're Pokemon characters. They're kind of shallow and basic, but serviceable. I don't think there's any problems with the story, except for once you get Cub Fruit. You get it at level 10, and you have to level up to maybe level 50 or 60. It's kind of annoying and tedious, but leveling this game isn't very difficult, so it's kind of whatever. I already talked about some of the new features of the DLC, like the Pokedex and Pokemon following you around when you walk, but there are a few others. There's this machine you can use to create items. You can make Pokeballs from apricorns, which make a return and could be found in some trees around the island. This is neat, but the new feature I like a lot is the Max Soup. If you give Max Soup to a Pokemon species that can G-Max, you can give that Pokemon the G-Max factor. So if you maybe want a G-Max Lapras, instead of going out to a raid den and trying to catch one, you can give a normal Lapras the G-Max factor with the soup. If you're looking for a specific nature or IVs on a G-Max Pokemon, it's now a lot easier to get what you're looking for. I have no problems with these new features, except for not having Pokemon follow you around off the island. But what I do have a bit of a problem with is the features that aren't there. I wanted them to expand the camping feature. Camping is not very interesting in this game, but it could have been. Maybe add in a new toy or some minigame, like in the Pokemon Ami or whatever the Gen 6 thing was called. Make it more interactive, or at least let me pet my Pokemon. Come on, Game Freak. For how much camping and curry appeared in the marketing of this game, I thought they would do a lot more with it, and I would have liked to see more of it. I don't really see anyone else talking about it, so I guess I'm in the minority. Ultimately, I think Isle of Armor is an okay expansion for an okay game. It's 15 bucks, it's not very expensive and doesn't add a whole lot, but what it does is nice. I guess my ultimate problem with the expansion is that it feels like it could have just been a really expansive post-game. If this was the post-game, I'd probably really like Sword and Shield, but at the same time, I understand that it's kind of a lot. I think a problem with reviewing expansions and DLCs is that you can't really look at it in a vacuum. A good DLC should be able to stand on its own, but at the same time it's still attached to the base game. I feel like the DLC isn't lazy, but rather restricted. Isle of Armor can't look as pretty as it could because Sword and Shield looks like a PS2 game, and it'd be really weird if you leave PS2 land to go to the Isle of PS4. For what it is, I think it's fine. I think a majority of the problems with the DLC comes from the fact that it's an expansion of Sword and Shield. And again, I'd like to see some more Pokemon and some new forms, but then again, hey, it's $15. It's not like I'm paying for a whole lot here. So those are my thoughts on the Isle of Armor. I hope that the next expansion adds in more new stuff instead of just older things, or at least adds in a whole lot more of older things. Now this is where I ask for audience engagement, and this is the last big thing I really wanted to talk about, so I may go dark for a while. It depends on whether I find something I really want to talk about or not. So, as always, I'm Kimada Kinpa, and thank you for watching.